Welcome back. And if you're new, it's great to have you. My name is Matt Porwall, and I'm an award-winning documentary cinematographer who's here to share my years of experience of working in the industry. But since filmmaking is a collaborative art form, I also think it's important to hear from other people to get their insights into the process as well. So today is going to be the first of many conversations that I'm going to have with fellow filmmakers, from directors and producers, to other cinematographers, to editors, sound recordists, basically anybody that has their hands in the making of a doc. Have you ever wondered how a director makes a documentary series successful? Or how they get their subjects to say yes in participating in the project? Or how they're able to separate everything that they know about the project from what they know the audience doesn't yet? Today, I'm going to be sitting down with the director, Pat Kondelis. Pat's a 2-time Emmy-winning and 5-time Emmy-nominated director whose work covers everything from verite to in-depth interview, archival, and recreation-based projects. So he has a lot of information to share on the process of making a doc. But we're also going to hear from him about what he looks for when he's choosing a crew and what not to do on a set. So you're definitely going to want to stick around for this. Well, I want to welcome a good friend of mine, Pat Kondelis. Pat is a director out of Austin, Texas, and we've worked together on a bunch of projects together at this point. I think we've done 3 series together. And Pat's list of projects that he's done is pretty incredible. If you don't know who he is already, then you really should know who he is. His list of credits include CNN's High Profits, which was nominated for an Emmy, Showtime's Disgraced, which won an Emmy, Outcry, which was nominated for 2 and won an Emmy, CNN's The Radical Story of Patty Hearst, HBO's The Scheme, also nominated for an Emmy, CNN's LBJ, Triumph and Tragedy, and Showtime's Catching Lightning. So the list of projects that you've done is pretty incredible, and I would have to say that you don't choose light and easy stories to cover.
Very true.
And so I would love to kind of get your thoughts on that, of just how do you choose a project? I mean, what draws you to the things that you've done?
Well, first, good to see you, my friend, and that was a lovely intro. I appreciate it. It's different for each project. If I lay awake at night thinking about the story and I have questions that I just am dying to know the answer to, those are the initial criteria that I really want to get into. And then I think, is there some gray? Is there some ambiguity here? I like that. But again, it's like I'm kind of doing this for my own selfish reasons, and that I really want to know. I want to know the truth of what happened, and it's like going on a journey every time, and it's a lot of fun.
So why docs? How did you land in doing documentaries and yeah?
Totally by accident. I never thought I would. I went to film school, but I never thought in a million years I was going to be doing docs. I was that very stupid, naive college kid, like everybody who was in film school. I'm going to be a film director. I'm never going to do documentaries. And getting out of college, I got a job I was lucky enough to get a job at PBS in Austin, and just started pitching ideas, and that's really how it kind of evolved. Subject matter that I was really interested in, people that I really wanted to interview. I'd figure out a way to create a story
Mm-hmm.
around that. And because it was no budget, they always said yes. And just evolved slowly over time.
What does your prep process look like for an interview?
I won't be able to sleep if I'm not completely prepared, and I feel like I know it inside and out. With a lot of these interviews, as you know, you get like one shot, right? You could get somebody,
You can't go
you
back.
can't go back. No, it's not like reshoots in a feature film or something. It's like you could work. I mean, I've worked on people for a year to get them to sit down, to convince them to sit down, and you could only have 2 to 3 hours. And that is a terrifying prospect, because it's like, okay, what do I absolutely need to get here, right? To cover this from a story standpoint for the audience, that this person can provide information that is absolutely crucial to the story. And then what am I forgetting? And then, like about the verite stuff, that's a totally different thing. And you just have to be very quick on your feet. You're thinking about post a lot of that, when you're sitting there in a car with somebody, what is this moment eventually going to turn into? What are the possibilities here? And, you know, what should I actually ask at this point? Which is a really tough line to walk when you're in that moment.
It seems like the unanimous thread through making a documentary is that you are constantly thinking about the edit while you're shooting, whether it's how you are kind of crafting and ordering your
Yeah.
questions to be able to evoke certain things that can slot in, or verite thinking, I don't know where this is going to go, but how do I create a scene? How do I make this work into something that might happen?
If I'm sitting there watching this at home and I don't have the context that you and I have, because we've been there with these people following this story for months or years, what am I going to be asking myself watching this? Right. And that's what's going through my head
Mm-hmm.
1,000 times a day. You know, at this moment, what am I missing here for somebody that doesn't already know the story? Because we know so much of that, and it's easy to fall into that trap.
So how do you do that? How do you separate what you already know from what the audience doesn't?
It's really hard, but you try to think about how can I communicate all of this necessary information so the audience has all of that background, right? So that they can be informed and in the moment and understand everything that's come up to this moment without spoon feeding it. So really, it's the hardest part of telling the story for me in documentaries is the comprehension, right? Communicating that comprehensively to the audience so that they're not going, wait, who is this person? What happened? You know what I mean? It's so easy. I think a lot of people
Mm-hmm.
don't understand that. It's so easy to get lost, right? And confuse the audience on just basic things. That's the most difficult problem because again, you have to separate what you know versus what the audience is going to know at this point when they're watching this. And if you make a mistake on something like that, there's really no going back. I'll never forget one of the best lessons I learned was on high profits. One of the execs at CNN, really
Mm-hmm.
smart exec, Lizzie Fox, she said, about Caitlin, who was the female lead, like she was very emotional at times because of all of the stuff that happened. And it wasn't reading to the audience. But because I was there, I was not separating myself in that way. And so I fought on a couple of the notes and I won the fight, but lost the war because she was absolutely correct. And again, it was one of those times that I failed to really separate my own experience from the audience, where like they're not seeing the same things that I'm seeing. So that stuck with me, and I think about that every project.
But on that point of kind of not forgetting
Yeah.
those simple elements and being able to compose that for an audience is, I think, one thing that's interesting that you always do, and I think really all of the good directors that I work with, is that you allow at the end of an interview,
Hmm.
you allow the crew who sometimes are people that are just hired in for that one day. They have zero context of what
Right.
this story is about and all the backstory that we might have, is you allow them the opportunity to ask a question at the end of the interview. And I think that's really interesting because I feel like almost every time someone will ask a question that you're like, oh my God, I never thought about that.
Right.
That simplest thing can kind of make you aware of what you might have missed.
Exactly. Sometimes it is the person, the sound guy who's just day playing that's come in, who's jumping right in, who hasn't been there for the last 4 months and doesn't know anything that came before, that can throw out a question. And you're like, that's a great question. I'm so glad you asked that because we could have missed something that would have really helped the audience from a comprehensive standpoint. That's how we typically end interviews. Is one, I say to the person, what do you want the audience to understand? What did I not ask you about that you want to talk about? And then throw it out to everybody in the room. Like, what am I forgetting? There's been great moments like that where people have asked phenomenal questions that I would have never thought of that are hugely beneficial for the audience and watching the story unfold.
What does it look like for you to choose a crew, both from, you know, someone like a producer or an editor or a cinematographer who's going to be on for the duration of the project, hopefully, all the way down to people that are kind of day playing? Is there a certain temperament? Is there a certain thing that you're looking for in those roles?
Yes, absolutely. Uh, First and foremost, people with that one are good at what they do, right? That are professional. If you're a day player, anybody that's watching this, it's a day player. For the love of God, get in there, be professional, be ready, have everything set up ready. Don't let a battery in your mixer go out in the middle of an interview. And to a lot of people, it's another job. Those are the people I try to avoid at all costs. I want people there that I can trust, that are focused on the story as much as possible. And if you have people with good attitudes that can roll with the punches and make the best out of it, it makes all the difference in the world. If you work really hard, and there's no question that you're working hard, and you have a great attitude, you will get work consistently. People will continue to bring you in.
Well, and I love when you're meeting a new crew person for the first time, and you can almost immediately tell how the day is going to play out.
Yes.
You either have one side where you kind of roll in, it's like, okay, what time is lunch?
Right, right,
Um, what time are we wrapping?
right.
Because I got this other thing I got to go to.
Yeah,
Or you have someone that comes in and says, so I haven't been told anything about this story. Like, what is this about? And then they just start asking about the story. And at that point, it's like, okay, good. Coming in and kind of immediately starting asking questions, even if you know absolutely nothing,
yeah,
to me says this person is going to be an asset and an ally to what it is we're trying to do today.
I agree completely. Well, I mean, look, it's a reflection. The whole crew, being a director and coming in, somebody's taking their time to do this. A lot of these people, it's the worst moment of their lives, where it's a historical, significant moment that they're recalling, that they don't have to. They don't have to do any of this. It's so much easier to say no. So you want to create an environment that's
Mm-hmm.
really comfortable for everybody to be in. And if you do that, that's when people are going to, you know, feel like they can trust you and actually start having a really, really interesting, in-depth, engaging conversation.
So how do you build that trust with people, both on the side of verite, which in some ways maybe is easier because you have more time to develop it,
Yeah.
but then also with people that you're interviewing once for a couple hours? Like what does that process look like to get them to open up to you?
The way I approach it is just brutal honesty about everything. You're right completely that you have more time when you're working on a verite project. Verite, you also get kind of a shared experience, which is really interesting when that unfolds with the subject. That you're following something really
Mm-hmm.
significant to that person. And, if there's a fork in the road or something really impactful for them happens and you're there catching it with them in a somewhat intimate setting, that can make all the difference in the world because then again, there's a shared experience. It's a lot tougher, I think, when you're meeting somebody the first time when they walk in to sit down and do an interview. What I've been told, at least by some of the interview subjects that I've interviewed, it's just by the questions, which comes back, I think, to the research and everybody being prepped and ready. Is that they take you more seriously when they know right away. Oh, okay, this this person knows what they're talking about. They're for real. They're invested in this. This is not a waste of my time.
So do you like having limitations when you work, either self-imposed or forced, whether it's the budget or time or whatever?
I think anything that helps you focus more on the story and to try to really drill down again, what is it that we're doing? What is it that we're looking for? What are the questions that we're trying to answer? Right? How visually are we trying to set up the tone for here? All of those things, like you need those pressures to help you really get down to the necessities, and I think you don't need things to overcomplicate it. It's way too complicated already.
What's gotten easier over time making a film and what's gotten harder?
Oh man, I don't know if anything's gotten easier. I hate to say that. I don't know what's gotten easier. It's all you're incredibly challenging and incredibly difficult to make a doc, no matter what you're making. There's a million things that can go wrong, and yeah, it's a but I mean, it's why I think we all love it. If it was easy, everybody would be doing it, and every time there's going to be a unique set of challenges that you're going to have to deal with and overcome, and that the whole crew's going to have to do together. And I think that's what makes it so rewarding, is if you get the trust from your subjects and you have the crew buying into this and everybody's working on this together. I mean, it's amazing that anything actually gets finished and gets broadcast, because I think we've all worked on stuff that we really loved that nobody ended up seeing, which is the worst feeling in the world. So to actually, again, spend months and years of your energy and, your life working on, when it actually, you get it finished, you're proud of it, everybody's proud to put their names on it, and a network puts it out there and the audience responds to it, that's the best feeling in the world.
Thank you very much for taking the time to do it. I think a lot of people are going to get a lot of useful, helpful recommendations out of this, and I hope people follow your advice, because there's some really good stuff in there.
Well, thank you, Matt. It's my pleasure.